Welcome to the Board Game Barbecue Podcast, episode number 307, brought to you by Advent Games and our Patreons. My name is Mitch, and I will be your host for today. We have a very special episode today that we're going to bring to you. We're going to change it up a little bit. This might be a little bit unusual to what you're used to hearing, and the reason we're doing that is because the man of the moment is here with us. This is the first person I'm going to introduce tonight. It is Def. How you doing, Def?
Good, Mitch. Thank you. There was a bit of hesitation there. Did you have trouble finding the episode number? Did you?
Well,
Connor was just literally holding his fingers up for you.
So that'll let us in on a little bit. We also have Connor here today. Hey, Connor, how you doing?
Hello, Mitty. Hello, Def. Good to see you both.
You too, mate.
And as I said, we're going a little bit off script today. So we also have with us Dan. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing really well, fellas. How are you?
Doing great, mate. It's good to have you here. And just because a party is not a party without more people, we've also got Adrian here today. How you going, Adrian?
Very well, thank you. How are we doing?
Not too bad. And because I'm feeling a little bit like Indiana Jones, I thought we'd dig up some relics from the past. And we've got
brutal.
Mike. How you going, Mike?
What up, Mitch and the barbecue? Hello, folks.
Welcome back.
Hey!
Been a while.
It has been a while. And, you know, because we don't like to do things by half, we've got also none other than the spectacular Sarah. How you doing?
Oh.
Hey, everyone.
Welcome back. Wow.
Good to be back. It feels good. It feels weird.
It's weird, isn't it?
What do I do? I forget.
How come
With your hands.
Yeah.
You're not on mute.
What do I do with my hands?
Why did Sarah get an alliteration? Where was my alliteration, Mitch?
Well, there was...
It's because you can't say the word that you rhyme with my name.
Exactly. I got told you can't say that word. It's a family-friendly show.
Save it for Patreon. Yeah,
that's
cool.
right. That's
Cardboard Connor?
Too many syllables, Def. I think you're fine. Too many syllables.
So the reason why we've got all the crew back together again tonight, and I will also throw in there, it's probably a good opportunity to say one of us is missing that was planning to be on the show. It was Jules. So Jules has passed on his apologies. He did plan to be here, but due to a flight delay and some issues picking his wife up at the airport, he has actually had to pull out at the very last minute. So he sends his apologies, Def.
Thank you, Jules.
He wanted to be
Thank
here,
you,
but life interfered with that, unfortunately. The reason that I'm saying that is because this episode is special because our good friend and compatriot who's been with us since the very start, Def, has decided that he is going to call it a day and wrap it up, and this will be the last episode that he's going to record with the Board Game Barbecue Podcast. So given that we thought, Def as always talks about the great times he spent with the people on the podcast, and that's what he appreciates most about it, and that's what he has enjoyed most about it. I thought, well, what better to do than to bring those people that he cares so much about back together to give him a last final send-off. So let's get into it then, Def. Now, you came. We're going to start with a little bit normal, like a little bit of a normal show, because you came to this episode, Def. You didn't know that everyone was going to be here.
That's right. This is a nice surprise. So thank you, everyone, for making the time.
Yeah, you've just rocked up here today, and you didn't know any of this was coming. But I believe you were preparing to tell us about a game that you've been playing that is probably your game of the year, I'm assuming. It's been absolutely consuming your life, at least for the past couple of months. So did you want to share and tell us a little bit about your ARCS experience that you were planning?
Oh, boy. Yeah, I would say everybody strap in, but I wasn't expecting so many of you, so we'll see how we manage here.
A lot of strapping.
I have to share seatbelts.
Yeah, so... Yes, so the game is ARCS, which was published by Little Games, or is being published by Little Games next month, and designed by Cole Worley. And Connor and I and Sarah and Jules, there was the four of us.
Yes.
We played this at the very early stages. We play tested this, and I think we all went out saying, this is okay. This is...
Right.
Probably good.
I wasn't way out. It didn't knock my socks off, Def.
It didn't. And
it was pretty unbalanced at the time. I remember it was all like ships and Jules' ships, and I just remember the whopping we got from Jules.
And at the time, we I kind of went and said, this is a Cold War game. I've been really loving all of his games. I'm going to back it in Cold We Trust kind of situation. And then it kind of completely dropped off of my radar. The only time it came back was when I saw heaps of people complaining on the Kickstarter campaign and on Board Game Geek because of how the map turned out. Initially, the map was like a traditional geographic map, like of a landmass, kind of like it had corners and isolated regions and things like that. And the way the map turned out is this circular number of sectors that form this circle in the middle, and they have gates that are adjacent to each other. It looks nothing like a traditional map. And I remember so many people complaining, and I was like, I would need to play the game. I don't know. The design looks funny, but I don't know. So a couple of months before the game arrived, one person from our community who I've been playing John Company and Perseverance with, Daniel, who is now henceforth be known as the Arcs AI. He's played the game like 450 times already. He goes, Def, we need to play a game of Arcs now that it's final. I was like, okay. Casually showing up, rocking up at the Tabletop Simulator mod, we play the game, and I was completely blown away by it. I was like, this is not the same game Connor, Jules, and Sarah and I play. This is a completely different thing. And then I played it a couple of more times, and then the game arrived in June. Now, since the middle of June, we are now in the middle of August, I've played it 19 times. Now, this is not a small game, you guys. This is like a 3-4 hour game. So, yes, it's consumed my game life almost exclusively. Arcs is, I think, a turning point in game design. It does so many things in such a unique way that it is worth trying, even if you do not think this is your type of game. But to take a step back, it's actually two separate games. You have the Arcs, what is known as the base game, which you get in this, root type size box. And you have Arcs, the Blighted Reach expansion, which is called an expansion, but I know that that's the game Cole designed first. And then...
right.
Yeah, so initially, Arcs was meant to be a 3-game campaign. That's all it was ever meant to be. And people from, the hobby and probably Leader Games as well told Cole, dude, we can't possibly sell this. We need some kind of version that is a one-shot. We can't. And Cole was, no. This is the game. This is the game. Anyway, ultimately, at the time, 2 separate games were created: Long Arcs, which was the original game, and Short Arcs, which is what we now call the base game. Well, so now when we talk about Arcs, it's the base game, but also the campaign expansion, which is actually the full experience called design. But even the base game is awesome. It has these. It's not a 4X game. It's like a space game where you're trying to gain points. It has a lot of conflict in it. This is a very mean game. And you're playing cards from your hand like in a trick-taking fashion. You're playing a value and the other players have to follow or surpass your value or whatever. And then a couple of things that the game does differently is that it's the player's choice what scores at the end of each round. Players have to declare one of the 3 ambition markers, which of the different scoring conditions will score at the end of each round. And so...
You mean like a group decision vote thing? Or like you vote your individual... Like
your
I want to score for this.
When you're leading the trick, depending on the card you play, you can choose to declare an ambition or not. Mm-hmm. But the ambition you declare is connected to the card you play. You can't just declare whatever you want. So you have this weird tension that gets created by, I'm doing well in this area, so I want to declare this ambition. But if it's too early in the round, everybody's going to swarm in and go and compete for that same ambition. If you leave it too late, other people might declare other ambitions that are not good for you. So, or you might not even end up having that card that you need to declare that ambition. So it creates phenomenal tension just from that. And then just the the pace of the game is phenomenal. It's the best pace I've seen in any board game I've ever played, in terms of you have these very snappy, quick turns, but they're all so infuriatingly limited because, and this is how I described ARCs at PlayCon, by the way, to a group that included my friend Nathan. And because Nathan was there, I was a bit more comfortable. So I said a few things maybe I shouldn't have said, but it turned out they all loved it. And so this is how I described the game to them. I said, you know how you have all of these massive space games like Twilight Imperium and Eclipse, and they kind of give you all of the options, and you can do all of these things, and you can build all of these fleets and technologies, and what do you want to do today? Well, ARCs does this. It will give you a shit hand of 6 cards and squeeze you into a corner where you can't do absolutely anything. And your job for 3 hours is, how do I mitigate this so I can have one decent turn? So it resembles Empire Building.
You like this game? It doesn't sound great. Like I'm
It
just
actually sounds like my kind of game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does. It is. It works the opposite way. Instead of giving the player full agency to do things between multiple options, it does the opposite thing. It gives the game agency and tells you, this is how the game limits you. What are you going to do about it? Like, I've played the game 18 times, and granted, some of these have been with the same group, but the new players I've played it with, not a single game hasn't gone by without somebody saying, oh, my hand sucks. My hand is crap. I can't do anything.
But the beauty of it is that you can, with the trick-taking element, is you can use those cards to maybe not have a good turn that turn, but play and get priority or leading in future turns. So that's what I really like about it, is it uses the trick-taking in a really cool way.
It does, and also allows you to have these really involved turns where you can combo things with your resources, because before you play your card, you can use your resources to do actions. And sometimes these are, completely useless, but sometimes they can really kick off a series of a chain of events that expand even bigger than your actual turn. So, the engagement in the game is phenomenal. The pace is phenomenal. The mitigation of the cards is the whole game. The whole game is, how do I work around this difficult hand of cards? And that is not going to be for everyone, as most of Cole's games, but I've been loving it. I've been absolutely loving it. And that's without even getting to the actual game, which is the Blighted Reach campaign, the expansion, if you want to call it that. But yeah, I don't know, before I get into the campaign, which is a complete roller coaster, has any of you played this yet?
I haven't played it. I unboxed a bunch of them for PlayCon. And I actually took the rulebook with me one night to work, and I read the rulebook over a night shift. So I kind of, you know what it's like when you first read a rulebook. Yeah, you kind of get a bit of an overview, but not really that good a detail. But yeah, so I haven't played it. Who else put their hand up and said they had played it?
Me, Connor.
Right, okay.
I was about to say, Connor, like, people can't hear you pointing at yourself. He doesn't know how this works yet. How long have you been doing this for?
Clearly not long enough.
I'm sorry, go.
So Connor's played it. Have you played the final version as well, Connor, or just?
Yeah. I played the final version. So I thought it's funny how you said, Def, that people crack the SADs over the map, because that was one thing I noticed to start with, that circular map. I was like, oh, this is way different. Like, it's that typical, when we played it, it was that typical area control type move from here there. But having that circle, it makes it so much tighter, and you've got those areas that you can and can't move through as well. And then, and then you've also got, being in typical Cole fashion, being locked into areas because you don't have enough troops to move, you don't own areas, and all that stuff. And it also means that pretty much as soon as the game starts, all the areas are taken up, just about, depending on your player count. Like people everywhere. So it makes the decision space really, really, really hard. Kind of like what I said before, we'll say trick-taking, but it's pretty much just playing suits, because when you lead it off, then you have an option to play a card of the same suit and then take that same amount of those types of actions, because each card will have a different type of action on there, and some will be specific to one. Or you can, like I said, you can take priority, you can take the lead, or you can just sort of play a card face down that you don't want the next turn. I just thought that was so clever, and I knew that Cole, after talking to him when he was on the show, was trying to use that system in a game, and it was really cool to see it finally come to fruition.
It's interesting because I was reading an article this morning, and somebody was interviewing him, and he was asking him, did you use trick-taking because it's the mechanic everybody's talking about, or lately, or whatever. He said, no, I use trick-taking because it's easily digestible. What happened, the way he explained it was that because every turn the initiative changes, or most turns the initiative changes, the dynamics of the game change, because whoever leads makes the decision about what suit will come into play, what actions will happen this round mostly, if there's going to be an ambition declared. So the focus of the game itself changes from player to player, and the agency changes, which you don't see often in games like this, especially in conflict games. So I just think it's phenomenal. The system is phenomenal, and the base game I thought was game of the year before I touched the Blighted Reach expansion. So for me, this is absolutely the game of the year, even just the base game. But the campaign is, I think this is going to be bigger than Twilight Imperium. I think this is going to become bigger than those types of games. This is how big this is going to be, I think. What is the campaign? The campaign has the base game of arcs, but you now have a layer on top of that where you have an empire. There's an imperial fleet. There's these purple big ships that are basically scattered throughout the galaxy, and they're super powerful because they control every sector they're in, no matter how many other ships are there. You have a non-sentient substance called the Blight, where there's these circular tokens. They're everywhere on the map, and they attack ships. They attack the players during the game. You have free states, where you have like a confederation of free cities and free starports that don't belong to any player but can be used from players. You have an imperial council that comes together and vote in intermissions and things like that. You have events that come into the deck. So the suits, the cards that you have in your hand are no longer just the numbers. There's scattered event cards that trigger council voting, imperial council voting, things like that. The players themselves can choose to be regents of the empire, or they can choose to be outlaws. So there's a little bit of that, oath-driven agency there about, okay, who do you want to be? Do you want to be a partner with the empire, which means if I'm an imperial regent and Mitch is an imperial regent and we're in the same sector and there's an imperial ship there, we cannot attack each other because the empire is watching. If you're an outlaw, then you're not part of the empire. It brings so much narrative into the game as well, and it is incredibly evocative. I would dare say that this is almost as evocative as Oath. I think Oath is, at the top of that type of ladder, but this is almost as evocative as this, because the main thing in the game is, apart from all of this stuff, the main thing is the fates. The fates are these cards that each player draws at the start of a campaign. The campaign lasts 3 games of arcs, and you can save it in between. And you draw 2 of these Fate A cards, and you keep 1. And what these say, they have this character with Carl Ferrin's evocative art, with his name, and underneath there's 2 lines of text. That's it. That's all you get. So, for example, in one of the campaigns I've played, I was the Believer. And his mission in life is to spread his faith across the galaxy. That's all you get from what is your purpose? What are you trying to do? You need to spread your faith. What does that mean? Well, you don't know. You need to choose the faith to play it out. And then the game begins, and each one of these fates has a big deck of cards and potentially additional components, tokens and whatever else. And that gets added into the game. For example, the believer has a separate deck of action cards, which is like a wild suit, numbered from 1 to 9. And he has a stack of them sitting there, and he has an action called Teach. And what he does with that is he attaches these cards to cards in the court, the political court. And whoever secures those cards from the court, as in the Ark Space game, you gain those additional action cards as well. And so, in a way, that's how he spreads his faith throughout the galaxy. You have these characters that have their own storylines, their own story arcs, if you like. And what happens is they create these very weird, interconnected plots as the game continues. So, for example, in our game, another player was the advocate, and the advocate's job was his mission was to connect with the ancient guilds of the past, which is basically saying you need to get as many guild cards from the court as possible. But what was happening was, because the believer was flooding the imperial court with his action cards, with his fate, the advocate didn't have any enough guild cards to gain. So our interpretation of that immediately, we didn't, this just came up on the table talk, was, okay, so the believer sent a whole bunch of religious zealots now to flood the political system, and the whole political talk is now come to a halt, and these guys have filled the court with their religious nonsense, and now the advocate can't do anything because of all of this stuff. So it creates all of these connected storylines, and then when the first act of the campaign ends, you check to see if you've achieved your objective. So the players no longer have a focus only on the points they gain. For two reasons. Mm-hmm. One, the points are not as important anymore, because points from Act A get halved at the end of Act A. And then points from Act B also get halved again. So the points from Act 1, you're only going to get a quarter of them at the end of the game. So That's the first thing. And the second thing is each fate has an objective they have to meet. If they don't achieve this objective, they cannot continue in the game. You have to choose a different fate for the next act. And so,
wow.
What it does is it transforms arcs from this, very interesting but very conflict-driven game to this game that basically anything can happen. This is one of the meanest games in terms of conflict I've played, and yet in the second campaign we played, the second act was a cooperative game between all 4 players. Because it happened that everybody wanted one of the other characters to achieve their objective because it suited them the way they were looking at their storyline.
Right.
Def, did you find that playing the base game enough times that there was almost like certain paths to victory that were more successful, but then when you played this other one, it sort of balanced it out because you had different objectives and you had to do different things, otherwise your character couldn't move on? Do you feel like it balanced the game in a way?
I think it does the opposite. I think the base game is extremely well balanced. There's no specific thing that can get you the victory and others that are weaker. I think what the Blighter Reach does, it brings so much more chaos factors in that the agency of the players is shifts from the actions, the things you can do in the game, towards the thematic storyline integration of, okay, I'm the believer, my job is to spread the faith, that's what I want to do. Does that get me all the points I need this act? No. Do I care? No. You kind of it drives you that way. And then to make it even more interesting, in the last act, in Act 3, there is the possibility of the Sea Fates to come into play. And what the Sea Fates do is they have a grand objective, and if they achieve that, whoever achieves that, they immediately win the game. No points, no competition for points, no nothing. So you could be 100 points behind in Act 3 from the first 2 acts. It does not matter. you're still in the game. You can still win the game. And I don't know, like I've played the 3 campaigns so far, and one of them hasn't finished yet. And the stories that come out are so evocative that every time I rush and message everyone that was in the game and say, okay, everybody needs to write down your notes from the game, and I'm going to write a little story on it. And I've started writing these stories, and it becomes quickly apparent that these are wildly different every time because of the different interactions of the fate between them. Some of them might be vying for the same similar things. Some of them might not be interested at all. There is one guy, one fate that is the blight speaker. He's the blight whisperer. He looks after the blight. He wants the blight to grow. And in our game, Matthew was playing the blight speaker. For whatever reason, his sort of feel for the game was that he had to use the blight to kill the Planet Breaker. The Planet Breaker is another fate in the game, and that was played by Daniel. And his mission was to use his massive planet hammer Death Star and go around the board destroying all the worlds. And Matthew was like, right, nobody else can stop this guy. I'm going to use the blight from the entire board to do it. So he concentrated all the tokens from everywhere on the board and started chasing the Planet Breaker around the board. But this was nothing to do with who was winning, who is having the points and all of that. And I'm not saying that in the terms of it was irrelevant, but it was interwoven with the game. It wasn't, this separate thing that was happening. It's just absolutely fascinating. And the way they've created this game, Cole has said it before, but I didn't realize it until I actually played it. They'll be building on this game for years because the way the system is created, all they need to do is to publish new fates, which is only a packet of cards. That's all they need.
You're right.
So,
that'll be that's the expansions you're saying, like just another couple decks of cards.
Yes,
change the fates and
more
it'll
fates and
adjust
stuff.
the game
More
up
fates.
as much as it needs to be.
This sounds like the way I want to play the game, to be honest.
Yeah.
It sounds way more fun, more interesting, things to talk about.
And it's not prohibitive.
I don't want to like a conflict because I'm not super into conflict, which is why I'm not really bothering to like rush to play it.
Yep.
But that sounds super fun to me.
So to me, Sarah, it sounds like my big problem with Oath was the actual game itself wasn't that fun to me. It wasn't like an engaging game to play with, but I really enjoyed it.
And it's so slow too because it's kind of a hard thing to learn and like, I don't know, it was really clunky.
I wanted to have the world built, like that's kind of important, like almost from the start, whereas this to me feels like, it's got a really fun combat system and the game itself is really fun to play. And then this is like the icing on top. This is like really, really cool and then a great use of the system to be able to, like that's what I was saying before. It feels like I would be someone that would just do the same thing again and again each time I played it rather than exploring, whereas this campaign system makes me feel like I want to explore those different options on how to win and how to play.
Yeah.
What do you say, Def? There's been some, I think I saw in our Discord community, there were some people saying that they didn't enjoy the game, or there was the experiences they had were bad. It might have been, Tool, talking about how he didn't enjoy it at all.
What does he know, honestly?
Because I think it was the randomness. Like there was something down to a card draw that could ruin your game or something like that. Was it? I don't know. Did you see that conversation?
Yeah, I saw it, and I understand it. I mean, I
think if you're playing 3 games, right, you're going to have 3 different hands. So it's not going to be a case of, this is completely stuffed because my hand was bad. And like Def said, the points from one act is halved anyway, right? So if you're playing all 3, I'm sure that evens out to a degree.
One sort of almost private joke we have with Daniel now when we introduce new players to ARCs is there is no good hand in ARCs. There's no such thing as a good hand. All hands are bad. They're all extremely bad because the way the system works is you have 4 suits. Each suit allows you to do different actions. So the blue suit allows you to move and influence people in the court. The red suit allows you to battle and move. Yeah, right. So things like that. So the colors, the suit is different actions, but the numbers declare different ambitions. So the 4 will declare warlord, the 6 will declare empath. So you have different suits and different numbers, and the highest the number, the less actions you get when you play it, but the less likely the follow-up players are likely to do more actions than you. So I have not felt that. I've played the game a lot now, and I have not felt that, I am absolutely driven to defeat or to victory by my hand of cards, because the game gives you that on purpose. It says to you, hey, I'm going to give you a bad hand of cards and see how much you can dig yourself out of this hole I put you in. And that's
Fun.
what that is. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. In the campaign, it does not matter even more, because in the campaign, I had a hilarious moment in our first campaign where I was ahead in the first act by 30 points, but once you halved them and then halved them again, it was 3 points. It didn't matter. But in the last act that we played, all I needed was to secure a couple of cards, and I kept not getting cards that allowed me to secure. Now, there's other ways to do it, but because of the story and the way all the fates interacted, I didn't manage to do it. And I remember feeling and discussing it with the people we played afterwards that did not seem to bother me. That did not seem to annoy me at all, because my brain saw it as another, spanner in the machine. And okay, so the puzzle is a little bit trickier now. How can we get out of this? So I did not feel to me that was a factor. I do think that a lot of people will not like this, or my hand of cards is not good enough for what I want to do. But I can guarantee you that if you sit down and play the game 3 or 4 times, and then I'm going to sit down and ask you, okay, here's a board state. What hand of cards would you like? You're not going to be able to point it out.
Has there ever been a runaway leader issue or anything in the game, or is it so well balanced that it's always contention for someone to take the win, just in the base game, not in the campaign game?
Yeah. I think it can happen mostly because this game has an extremely high skill ceiling. So it could happen, but at the same time, I mean, I've played the game almost 20 times. I played it yesterday at the Brisbane Game Day and taught Sam and Andronicus, 2 new people. And no, hang on. That was Emily and Jason and Spencer. So 3 people that all 3 of them had played the game once before, and they were kind of lukewarm about it. They weren't sure and they wanted to try it again, right? So we did the teach and we go through it. One of the players was at 0 points on the 3rd round, and everybody else had 17, 14, and 7 or whatever. That player scored 26 points. You need 27 to finish the game. It was 1 point short from straight out winning from 0 points, not because everybody else was asleep. And so it happens. I think you will get games where the skill will, how much experience you are with the game will matter. But we haven't had any games where we felt that, somebody's winning way too far ahead. We know there's no way
you're
we're
playing it
catch
for
him,
an hour, just going through the motions.
The game doesn't allow for that. It doesn't do that. It doesn't. You have that with Root sometimes, and even with Root, you'll see. I know Connor agrees with this. In some cases, some factions, you already know how many points they're going to score next round, or almost how many points, and you go, well, so if we don't win before that, then that's the game's going to end.
Yeah, right.
In this game, there's so much levers you can pull. And in many of these cases, they are being pulled and you don't even see it. There's levers that were pulled yesterday in this game that I didn't see, and I played the game 20 times. So, yeah, I don't know. So far, it has been absolutely incredible. I think there's going to be a lot of arcs in the future. The game hasn't even hit retail yet. I think this is going to absolutely explode when it does. The map design is that people were complaining about, which I understood at the time, just looking at the map. But the map design is absolutely brilliant. What they did was, Cold said, okay, hang on. If I make a traditional map, the traditional map always has regions that are good or regions that are bad, because some regions are in the corner and some are in the middle and some have more adjacencies and whatever. It's like, hang on, this is space. It shouldn't work like that. And that's why the circular is absolutely brilliant the way it works.
Something we haven't touched on, Def, and I'm wondering your opinion on Cole Ferrin's artwork, because to look without knowing how deep and strategic the game is, it looks fun. It just looks cute and even a little bit silly and stuff. Does that offset the depth of the game?
It does, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because the game doesn't take itself seriously. It doesn't, it's not this grand space empire that you're controlling. You are the guy. You are the single guy that is trying to manipulate this heavy bureaucratic imperial machine to do one single thing. If we can do this, just one thing, we'll be happy. But, this is heavy bureaucracy, space bureaucracy. It's not like you have this grand, feeling of, oh yeah, I'm commanding 1,000 fleets now. I'm going to go and, conquer everything. It's not like that. It doesn't take itself seriously. And Kyle Ferrin's art contributes to that a lot. I mean, you need to look up the artwork for the Planet Breaker. It is really like a lot of these cards, they have such artwork that creates a story just by looking at them. And I think that also comes up in the game. People do not take it, I think, in that sense of that you can take maybe, I keep mentioning Twilight Imperium, but I don't have anything against Twilight Imperium. But it's, in this game, we created these stories because we felt we were led by the characters in the game to create them, not because we were having a moment or we were wanted to be lighthearted. It was a lot of fun. And the other thing is that, yes, there's a lot of conflict in this game, a lot less in the campaign, but the conflict is not driven because you can. It's driven because it benefits you. And in a lot of cases, it doesn't benefit you to do something to another player. And in some cases, it benefits you greatly. It benefits you so much that you'll probably, if you do it, you'll probably get the same thing 3 times the size of that next turn. And it just creates hilarious moments. I attack Adnan's planet because I want to steal that one card that will give me all the points. And I'm like, yeah, I'm safe after that because there's all this blight here that protects me. And then the blight whisperer goes, radio, let's go, blight. We're going to chase the planet breaker because he's about to blow up this entire planet over there. Let's go. And then opens up the entire map. Adnan comes back, steals the card I stole from him, and 3 more. It's just hilarious. At no time have I felt bad about getting attacked or getting things stolen from me in this game or doing that to another player. And that has always been a problem for me with some other games. So I know that this will still be a problem for some people for this game, but if nothing else, I think you should at least give it a try.
So it's mean, but it's mean done in a good way.
Yeah, although I don't know how to better explain it than show you how the game works. You know what I mean? It's difficult. The feeling it evokes is not negative. It's a lot of fun.
So 19 plays under your belt. Question is Arx going to catch Gaia Project?
I don't know yet.
So you're saying it's a possibility. You're not closing the door on that one. I'm
not closing the door. The experiences we've had so far have been absolutely incredible. Every campaign has been absolutely mind-blowingly good and so much fun. You just don't want to play other games. You just want to say, all right, when are we catching up next to finish this campaign? Let's go.
What I want to know
needs to be done now because I need to start a new campaign afterwards.
Is if Arx and Voidfall were both released last year, which one would you prefer to play?
Whoa.
Connor. Asking the tough questions.
I want to see the corruption versus the blight. Let's go.
That's it. Let's go. Get them into the ring.
No, don't come on. Don't
you got to answer. You can't dodge out of that.
I think for me, they looking back at my, journey in the hobby, they are the two parts of the same coin. Voidfall is that excellent heavy Euro, extremely tight, but almost multiplayer solitaire game, which this is all I used to play. These are the games, and when we started this journey 4.5 years ago, Adrian, this is all you like to play. I remember coming to you with a simple, I don't remember what it was, and he was like, oh no, there's too much conflict in this, I'm not playing that. And I was like, yeah, I'm not playing that either. And, Arcs is, I guess, my next step in this journey. It has a lot of fun, and you need to play it with people that enjoy it in the same way. And I'm lucky enough that I found a lot of people that sit in that side of the line. And yeah, it's been absolutely incredible. The experiences we've had have been phenomenal.
I think when you teach it like 16 times in a row over 3 days, then you're going to find a lot of people.
I thought, like at PlayCon, I thought this would break me. I started counting how many times I taught it, and then I think Saturday night I kind of lost count, and then I think it ended up at 12. That's what the number I've got, that I taught it 12 times. And then next week, Daniel calls me and says, "Hey, I know you've burnt yourself out from Arcs, but do you want to start a campaign tomorrow?" I was like, "Yep." Let's do it. And we played a full campaign in a weekend. It has not happened, so
nice. Well, I think it's a very human thing to like be protective of our stuff, and I think we could stand to let that go a little bit more in games. Like, it's just play, it's fine, but like we can't help it. It feels bad when people try and take our stuff.
Especially when you've like built up turns for it. It's like, I finally get to use this thing. No, I don't. It's gone.
It's gone now. The moment's passed.
I'm just confused. Def hasn't mentioned Lacerda once yet. What's going on? Have they broken up? Did I miss something?
He's changed, Mike. He doesn't speak to Vital anymore.
What's going on?
He's lasered off his tat. His thigh tat's been lasered
going
off.
on here?
Lesser who?
All right.
I played Inventions a lot this year. I've played Inventions a lot.
Yeah.
Inventions are so good.
Yeah.
So you've done your mega sizzle on Arc, Steph. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on the game before we move on to our next segments?
Not really. I think for me, it has been a few games that have changed how I feel about this hobby.
Yep.
That have pulled me out of holes in the hobby that, you kind of, they happen naturally. You kind of move on. You kind of feel, I've played enough games. I'm not that interested anymore. It happens with every hobby, not just this one. And, some other games that have, given you experiences that move above the hobby. They give you some hilarious moments. They get you to know people better. They get you to create even new friendships out of these. And Arcs has been one of those games. If I point them out, there's probably 4 or 5 games that have done this for me the last 5 years, and Arcs is one of them. So it is, in my opinion, the best design I've seen in a while, and I can't wait to see what happens next.
That's excellent. All right, so there you have it. Arcs by Cole Worley and Leader Games.
I didn't even really want to play it, but of course now I do want to play it, and I want to play the full campaign. And
Welcome back.
Life is imitating art. Def is the believer or whatever, spreading the word of Arcs to everyone.
I'm pretty sure Sarah's got a purchase pin in her hand right now.
I do not. It's a hair clip, but yeah.
I know a guy that can teach you anyway. It's all good.
Yeah, I've got someone that's been hassling me to play. It's fine.
All right, so we'll just quickly touch on a couple of points before we move on to the next segment. First of all, that our Melbourne Barbecue Game Day is coming up on the 21st of September in the Gaming Arena in Coburg. So it's a new venue for us. If you haven't been along before, if you're in that area and it's a better location for you, get along and check it out. Tickets are on sale via Eventbrite. And also, if you're in Sydney, the Sydney Barbecue Game Day is coming up on the 2nd of November at Castle Hill RSL. The same venue as we have been to previously. Those tickets are also available on Eventbrite, so check those out now. With that, we will move on to our next segment, the question of the pod.
You know that game you've been wanting for a long, long time? The one that's been on your wish list for ages? Yeah, that one. The one you've been adding to your cart and taking off again, umming and ahhing about whether you should get it or not? Well, I'm here to push you over the edge and say go to adventgames.com and add that to your cart right now. I bet you that Dean has a great price on it. He's got great customer service, flat rate shipping, and there's so many other goodies to explore on the website. Wonderful categories all organised to pick the exact game that's right for you and the group that you play with. So head over now, don't hesitate, to adventgames.com.au and add that game to your cart now.
So the question of the pod from last week was, how do you feel about expansions that contain patches or fixes from board games? Now, because we've got a couple of special returning hosts on the show, I'm going to put them on the spot right now. Mike's eyes just lit up.
He's terrified.
So I'll actually be a little bit nice to Mike. I'm going to go to Sarah first. Do you have any feelings about expansions or patches to fix games?
What? That's unfair. Why are you being nice to him and not to me? That doesn't make any sense.
Because you looked cool. You were like,
Shut up, Sarah. Answer the question.
Yeah, I got this. I got this.
Yeah.
Mitch has been so mean to Mike on the show. Like, it's just like...
That's true. Fine, I'll take one for the team. No, so what's the question? So how do I feel about them?
How do you feel about expansions that contain patches or fixes? So like erratas and things like that to correct maybe mistakes or problems that existed in first editions or so on.
Get it right the first time, guys. What's going on? No, I'm kidding. No, I think obviously that's good. I think it's a positive thing. I think it's good to be living in this era where we can have that much input into our products and things like that. I think it's really cool. I think it should be seen as a positive thing. I think it's cool that the community can feed back to designers and publishers and people like that and get things done that they want to see. Like, honestly, I think it's positive. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Not everything goes according to plan the first time. Things don't get picked up on for whatever reason. I mean, there's some embarrassing blunders occasionally, right? Like, remember the Arc Nova bloody Sydney written wrong on the board. Like, stuff like that is a bit silly, and I have a bit of a giggle at that. But like, I think that, I think it's a positive thing. I think BGG's really has always been a good place for that as well, where, fans of a game can say, hey, we picked up on this and whatever. I know that's great. And like, speaking as a, someone who's tried to design games and stuff as well, I would, appreciate that. I would appreciate people saying, hey, we discovered this and,
Yeah.
And then changing it for the next one. I mean, so I guess the negative part or whatever is for people that bought the, that might have bought the original or whatever, right? Yeah, look, it's hard. It's hard when like you buy something full price and then it goes on sale the next week. But like you can't anticipate for all these things, right?
True.
Like you're gonna have to. Sorry, you bought this copy, and sometimes you just have to live with that. Like for the longest time, remember I was complaining that I had the first edition of Eclipse, and then the second one came out, and blah blah blah. But the fact of the matter is, it was a product that I bought that I loved. What's so bad about it? What's so bad about it? And I kept that original, and I was lucky to be gifted the second edition. Probably because I complained about it so much on the podcast. Yeah, but I think that's about all I have to say. I think it's a positive thing. I think don't get too caught up and too grumpy if your OG copy, doesn't have everything or has something a little bit, not quite right about it. Either incorporate that, the new rules into it if you can, or don't. Just play it its original way that it came out. Enjoy it how you bought it. Right. And that's it for me too.
So we had Def's mega sizzle, and we've just had Sarah's mega answer for the question of the pod.
I don't know what to say about it. You asked me. Don't ask me again.
So let's go to Mike. What do you reckon, Mike? How do you feel about patches and fixes?
I think it's inevitable. Like in today's age, if you're playing a video game and once it hits the floor, enough people play it and they find the issues, they can just upload a patch. We can't exactly upload a board game. So I think the effort there that the company's going to do to fix the issue is fantastic. I give more props if they give us a way to fix it without having to pay for it again. So I've had that before. I'm like, well, I need to buy this expansion now to get the new rule book that's going to fix issues in my old rule book. Give me a PDF downloadable copy. Like, if you stuffed up that old rule book and I need something better, I know there's a game I haven't played yet sitting on the shelf, Heroes of Might and Magic 3. I'm waiting to dig into. The community had to redo the rule book because it was so hard to follow. You know, in those circumstances, the community can help out those things, but I think it comes down to the company to say, hey, we stuffed this up. We might be releasing a better one in a future version, or I can't remember what game it was. It was a game I had that had a new rulebook coming, but you had to buy an expansion to do it. And I was like, I'll buy a new rulebook. Let me buy that by itself if I want to. So I think giving people the option on how they want to fix it, but it's inevitable. People are going to play test it. People are going to find ways to break the game. The company trying to improve it is always going to be a good thing. Just how they get to the public, I think, is what they need to consider.
It's a good point. All right. Well, it's, as we always say, it's not about us. It's about what the community had to say. So I'm going to throw over to Connor now to read out our Facebook answers from the community.
Right off of Facebook, we had Adam Rao. Of course, it would be better if the game hadn't need to be fixed in the first place, but if it can't be changed in an updated rulebook, I'd rather they release the fix in an expansion than not at all. Yeah, I probably would agree with that. It'd be cool to get it right from the beginning, but as we've discussed, doesn't always happen. Jason Ruan says, ideally the game wouldn't need any fixes and the designer and publisher has thoroughly tested it before release. But I also understand the challenges, especially with the asymmetric setups. You could have had hundreds of testers and played thousands of games personally, but nothing quite tests like the design of millions of plays by customers after release. Yeah, there's only certain amounts of things each person can do when they're play testing. Margot Hoekstra, I like it when it is part of some extra stuff. For example, 7th Citadel had some changes to some cards, understandable when you look at the number of cards in that game. In the expansion in November, due date as if. This is fixed. This is fixed with some extra scenarios. These issues are not very severe, so it is not needed to get it. But whilst they are adding more stuff, they just add the fixes. I think this is a good way. And finally, from Daniel Mutine, I think fixes should come first as promos, free mini expansions, and then re-implemented in the full expansion if one was released. It's always good when the designers and publishers listen to player feedback, but I wouldn't want to buy an expansion just for that fix. Then I just want the base game.
Excellent. And 80, did you want to go through the couple we got from, I think it was Insta?
Yeah, we had YGK.GameNight say, we prefer that to version 2 being released. A recent example would be Ice or Raiders of the North Sea Redux, making the first version almost obsolete. And then we had...
Oh, good luck with that name.
I did it last time and it was so bad. Connor, you know it. Do it.
Chumesian Todd?
Why do I know it?
Because you ridiculed me last time.
Yeah,
Chumesian Todd said in response to the previous commenter, totally agree. I'd rather throw out a handful of cards than a whole game. That's why I really appreciate that Dominion had all of the 2E update decks.
Cool.
Second edition, I'm guessing. So.
Yeah, there's some good points.
That's crazy to me. I would never throw out a game to buy the new one. I'd just be like, I'll just put up with this slightly broken rule. Like, I don't know.
No, but I think
like
I've sold my first editions to buy a second edition.
Yeah.
100%.
That makes sense.
Great Western Trail.
Yeah.
Great Western Trail. I gave my first edition to Con, and I bought the second edition.
Thanks for your offcuts.
You can have my scraps, Connor. It's all good.
And with Ice, that was also like a production issue because it cost them money. They lost money making that thing because they, at the time, the production value was set at, say, A, and it just ramped up with production costs in the world in a COVID world. So they just redesigned the game to make it more streamlined so they could actually do a second edition and still make it a sort of successful Kickstarter that was financially viable.
Yeah. All right. So we'll move on to our next question of the pod. And I don't think it's going to be any surprise to anyone, but our question for this week is going to be, what is your favorite Def moment from the podcast? We're going to do a bit of reminiscing about Def and have a think about what he's brought to the hobby for you as a listener, and some takeaways that you've had. Maybe your favourite part he's spoken about on the show. Maybe the way that something that he's influenced you with. Maybe how he's purchased 17 boxes of Batman Chronicles from you. Or anything that makes you stand out from Def. So, of course, that was what this was all about. I'm going to start with Dan.
Oh, okay.
Put you on the hot seat. What's your favourite Def moment, or something that stands out to you about your time with Def?
I think the top of the list would have to be meeting him and his family. Oh no, I was going to say at the retreat, but it's actually going to Def's house and having Dimmy's spanakopita. And I think she even made me a couple so I could take him home as well. That's how good they were. But yeah, going over there and meeting the family and also playing some games we've played. We played Oliver Millen's prototype Matchbox Empires. I think that was that was really, really fun. We played Vindication at Devs. In fact, there was a bunch of us all got together and played that. And the one and only time I've ever played Kanban EV, and I beat Def and Dimmy, and so I hung up the game and I haven't played it since. I'm walking away with a 1-from-1 victory there.
What about you, Connor?
Oh man, don't make me do this. I'll get all emotional. I think for me,
the fact that he's finally leaving, you can say it, Connor.
Don't you dare! Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. What I've enjoyed the most from Def is, and I think the insight he's provided in games has always blown my mind. I think it was when we did our first ever all-in for our top 10s, and Def pretty much said the change that these games in his top 10 have had on his life, and he did like a mini deep dive or a mini sizzle. And for a hobby that is for me, something I do in my spare time, and I mean that like as in I don't put a lot of thought into like the games I play or whatever. It's so refreshing to listen to someone like Def who puts so much thought into how he speaks about games. And I think we always mention how when he's talking about a game, he never ums or buts. He's just like metronomic in how he delivers information. So I'm gonna miss that on the show. That's been some of my favourite parts. But I think you teaching me Gaia Project and how much fun I've had playing that game with you and Harry, and how we just did week after week of playing that game. And I would never have played heavy games if it wasn't for you. And I think I said that to you, is that that is a massive change for me. And yeah, I will never game the same way as then before I met you. So thank you, Def.
Thanks, Connor. You are getting me emotional. So
my answer seems so superficial now. Thanks, Connor.
Everyone's
Computer versus Gaia Project.
I like the food.
Everyone told me for being such a moron on this show that I thought I had to prove you all wrong. So I thought, there we go. I'll actually say something insightful for a change.
Right, Mike's sitting down there in the corner trying to look sheepish, so I'm going to throw to Mike next.
I've always loved listening to Def talk about games. I speak English as a first language and he doesn't, and he makes me sound like a bloody idiot, which isn't far wrong. But yeah, similar kind of the depth and emotion he can put into an experience of a game and how articulate he can make it. Even if it's a game I probably wouldn't normally play, he brings such life to it and such emotion to it that it makes everyone want to try it. Like Arcs, Cole early games aren't really my sort of games, but listening to talk about Arcs for a while there made me go, oh, this sounds really great, but it's bloody Def telling me, so of course it does. I think back to our time meeting up at your house as well, Def. It was an amazing time playing games. And then you moved states on me, and that was horrible. I was looking forward to playing more with you. But just little chats we've had in the background. Just listen to you. You know, I remember when you were really excited because your girls were playing, I think, Root with you a while ago. It was really cool. Just listen to all that grow and listen to you on the podcast has always been a pleasure, mate. And, you know, even though I'm not here anymore, I know the community will really, really miss hearing you talk about games so passionately, mate. So, yeah, it'll definitely be missed.
80.
Oh, man, so many memories. Even just, hanging out Boxing Day at my house and seeing Def teaching games and just being here and, being with the family and that, and his family here, and having everyone together is just lovely. And going to Def's on New Year's Day and playing Brass Birmingham and all of the 18xx games. I'm the same as Connor. I think actually, Connor, me and you were in that first On Mars game that we played online donkeys ago.
And
that was our
funnily enough, it was because Sarah couldn't play and I jumped into Sarah's spot. So
wow. Second best again. Fair play. But yeah, we I don't think we ever would have gone down that journey. And even to the point now, like, a long time ago, well, not like long ago, but one of my O's was to teach an 18xx myself, which for me is terrifying. Def does it very well. So I had, used his knowledge and his teaching to try and teach the game. And I actually felt confident when I did it. And I actually kind of felt a bit proud of doing it. And I think I would never have had that ability to do that kind of stuff without Def's help and knowledge, for sure. And and that's going to continue on. We're booked in to play 1862 on the 8th, which I'm really looking forward to. And just hanging out and playing games. And
there was, I think, you might have forgotten this because it may have only been, I'm not sure if it's something that sticks out in your memory, but I think he also motivated you to get into arts and crafts at one point in time, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yes. I made Def the Old Prince, which is 18. God, the numbers are all the same. 72? Is that right?
71, I think. Yeah.
71, I was close. But yeah, making that was really cool just so that he had it, because I knew you couldn't get it. And there's speculation and rumor that it might eventually get a print run or go to a publisher, but these things take years. Do you know what I mean? Sarah would know that. These things take a long time, and it might never happen. So I was like, I'll make it and we'll play it, and it'll be rad, So
I'm lucky you weren't the laminator at that point.
No,
you'd moved past that.
I got past that.
Yeah.
I've actually unlaminated some stuff from that time.
Have
just
you
recently. Yes.
Unlaminated?
Just a couple of weeks. Yeah.
I didn't know unlaminating was a thing.
Oh, it is. It is now. So
it's like the sequel when he comes back as the good guy.
That's right. Sequel. Good work.
All right, Sarah.
Oh, I swore. That's bad. Censor that out. We don't do that here. Me? Okay.
Yeah. You are Sarah, aren't you? I just double checked.
I am.
Yep. Okay.
So when I was on the podcast, I think Def was a little bit of a mentor for me because, his sizzle tonight obviously was amazing. I always joke around that I like dry games, and I never talk about theme and stuff like that, and feeling. I'm not going to talk about feelings, how I feel about games. And Def does that so well. He talks about how everyone felt playing it, and it just, you're so good at that and describing these games in depth and articulating yourself. And I was like, I want to be like that. And I really miss our talks as well when we sometimes talked about, I don't know, what we like about games. And you brought that out in me on the show, and I miss that. That's a general thing. And I think one of the best moments, there were so many, but I think the first playtest we did with Lacerda was pretty cool.
Was that with the machine?
Yeah.
It was with the machine, yeah.
Yeah.
We finished at 2:30 a.m. and I was texting Sarah manically. It's like, Sarah, can we collaborate? I know it's a competitive game. Can we get this done? I need to go to bed. Can we finish the game somehow? How do we finish this game?
That's right. Def was messaging me how do we, what are the end game conditions again? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. When we heard that was a long time ago. That was 6 hours ago. I don't know how to end it. If I knew, I would stop.
I was in that chat, and I was so tired, and I had work in the morning, and I was
same.
You were delusional.
We both thought you had fallen asleep.
Yeah,
we both probably had. Adrian's asleep now. He's gone.
Yeah, he was gone. He couldn't form words anymore. Oh my God, that was fun. But it was such a moment, I think. And you and I we liked sort of similar games as well. You liked the heavy games as well, and yeah, I miss it.
Well, that leaves me. And what can I say, Def? You're my coin brother in arms. the coins, the war games. I think you and I have connected over that sort of aspect of it. The games that carry a bit of history and a bit of interesting information that goes along with them and interesting storylines. We've smashed Undaunted Normandy. Every mission in that campaign. We've about halfway through Africa. We've done a couple of different coins, I think, over our time online. I won't say that I'm going to miss any of that stuff because I have no intention of stopping. We're still going to do those. We're still going to play whatever online. But from that perspective, I don't suppose I will look back on my time with Death, and I'm sure you all will just say the same thing, but I've just beat you to it, as what he did on the podcast. But for me, it'll be, I found a friend. That'll be a friend for life. And I'm going to move on.
Did you get that off the back of a cereal packet?
I might have.
Found a friend.
Thanks, everyone. It's all very touching. Thank you.
No, is it the milk or the cereal that has the
Milk,
lost a friend? But yeah, no, thanks, Steph, for everything you've done, mate. I really appreciate it. It's sad to see you go, but time and life stops for no man. Progress marches on.
Geez, that was poignant.
So, yeah, unless it's not your turn, and then it can take an eternity. All right, so just quick plug for the... Oh, actually, I think before we move off the comments about Def, Dan, do we have some more comments about Def?
We may have some. Just stand by and see if I can find some.
Def, it's Sam McDonald here. Hey, I was sorry to hear that you're leaving the podcast, but also I want to say, job well done, mate. You've been an awesome voice on the podcast, speaking with such expertise, clarity, and really interesting insights. We love to hear that as gamers, people like you thinking so strategically about games. I also loved meeting you at PlayCon and playing that epic game of Gaia Project with you. You were such a joy to hang out with. You were so encouraging and fun. And so I really hope we can do that again. And please make sure that if someone else joins the podcast, we have another Gaia Project advocate. Hey, all the best, mate.
Hey, Def, it's Ian O'Toole here. Sad to hear the news that you'll be leaving the podcast, but I'm sure we'll stay in touch. It was great to meet you at PlayCon this year, and I look forward to losing to you in Gaia Project many times in the future. Best of luck, mate.
Hi, Def. Paul Grogan here from the UK. Just wanted to say a big thank you for all of your efforts on the podcast over the years. It's been a real pleasure listening to your thoughts on games and having me on as a guest a couple of times. I have actually written to my local MP complaining about the fact that you're going to be leaving the podcast. So you might receive some kind of official notification from some UK authorities telling you that you're not allowed to do it because Paul says so. I hope that changes your mind. But anyway, I wish you all the best with whatever you get up to in the future.
So there you have it, Def.
That's awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
No, you're not going to get off of that easily. It's the floor is now yours to say whatever you like.
I just want to say that it's not an easy decision. It's actually pretty sad day when I told everybody that I'm leaving, and I've been through a roller coaster of emotions as. You will know better than anyone, mates. I've been calling you left, right, and center and having a lot of long discussions about this. But, I think that I have... I have something here. I can show you guys, the listeners. I'm going to describe it for them. So it's a little palm-sized helicopter with a turning... helix, which I 3D printed on my printer, and the purpose of this is to remember to look at things from a bit further above, from a bit higher level and sort of different perspective, rather than too close and too much in the weeds. So looking back at this 4.5 years, this podcast has been a massive force of positiveness in my life. I've done so many things that I wouldn't have done otherwise, including, evolving as a person. And, I remember the first game day, I wasn't going to go because I was just too, had too much social anxiety for it. And Adnan called me and said, yo, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to bring my copy of Eclipse, or my mate Chris will bring his copy of Eclipse, and we'll just play the three of us. And that's it. You don't have to sort of mingle with the hundreds of other people. And so to go from that, I don't remember if I've shared this story before, but to go from that to, an event like PlayCon with 500 people there and me, I caught myself sort of walking around the tables and jumping in and helping people with questions about inventions. And that famous story of me playing Guy Project with Ian O'Toole, Sam McDonald, and Nathan. And then Tristan from More Than Meeples comes and says, hey, Def, we know you're in the middle of a Guy Project game. Can you quickly come over there and teach us Voidfall? And just quickly. And the others didn't hear that because he was it was a loud room. And so I turn around to the others and say, hey, guys, I'll be right back. I'll take my turn. I'll be right back in 5 minutes. I'm just going to go teach these guys Voidfall for a bit. I'll be right back. And you should have seen Ian O'Toole's and Sam McDonald's and Nathan's face. It was absolutely hilarious. So my point is, I've gained so much from this. And I want to believe that I've contributed an equal amount back as well. I met with Dean from Advent Games at PlayCon, and he had some GMT stuff. I'm sure you've seen it, Mitch. And I was like, oh, this is, PlayCon was a big event for people that are, in board games or coming into board games. It wasn't a very sort of niche audience. And I wasn't expecting to see these kinds of games. And Dean said, well, actually, I think from the moment you started talking about these things on the podcast, Steph, I've been getting more orders for GMT games. So, but also the fact that I've managed to show heavy games and games that maybe people might have been intimidated by, or, didn't have anybody to teach them. And, not everybody can learn from the rule book. It's, be able to help a lot of these people learn and play these games. It's been an absolute massive force of positivity in my life from every possible angle. A lot of the people in the community are now good friends. I'm good friends with. I moved to Brisbane 3 years ago, and I already had a circle of people I could hang out with, which to me by itself doesn't mean a lot because I'm not the kind of person that values, having a massive circle of acquaintances. I prefer 3 close friends. But through that circle, that was what allowed me to get out and sort of meet with them and spend some time. And from that, I've created 3-4 very, very meaningful friendships here. And, I think all of this has been just a massive, massive force of positiveness in my life. All of you guys have been, awesome to be on the podcast with. You've been great friends, and my sort of oath today was going to be that I want to try and retain these relationships moving forward. There's always impact related to leaving a team and leaving a something that is so routinely interwoven into your daily life now. I said when I sent you guys the message that I'm leaving, I said that, I'm going to miss talking to everybody on the podcast, but mostly I'm going to miss my daily routine, waking up every morning and checking my phone to see, okay, who said good morning, who said what's going on today, and just chatting with you in the admin channels in Discord. So, I don't know how to value that. Everything else is you can put a number on it or something, but the friendships I've made with all of you, and the friendships I've made, and the relationship I've made in the community, and the fact that I've helped, at least one person do something they weren't prepared to do if I wasn't there, it's just huge for me. It's been it's been a great part of my life. And as far as what's next, I'm not really sure, to be honest. I still have a lot of enthusiasm and passion for the hobby, and like I said when we were discussing ARCs, it's evolving, it's changing, what I enjoy and what I don't. My friend Adnan sent me a message just before we started recording, and he's doing the pub meeple comparison with his games, where you choose your top 10 games, etc. His top game was Always on Mars. And then we played John Company, and he sent me a message. I remember when we played it the first time, he said, I think John Company just destroyed Euros for me. And just before we started recording today, he sent me the screenshot. Arcs was one side and On Mars was the other. He's like, uh-oh, we have a problem. And the hobby for me, it is evolving inside me as I am as a person as well. So I don't know what I'm going to be doing next. I haven't planned for anything short of, I've told Jules and Adrian that I'll be coming for them next year, because I'm going to be starting my own convention called, wait for it, DEF CON. To compete with PlayCon.
Perfect.
I've been doing some streams online just because one of the parts of the hobby that has dropped off the last year has been the solo games. And that's good because that means I had a lot more people to play with. But that's also bad because I actually value my alone time sometimes. And I enjoy interacting with these systems by myself and thinking about them. And it just wasn't happening. And the streams are just a way for me to feel like I have some company when I play these games. If there's somebody in the chat, they make a comment, I spend the next 45 minutes talking to them as if they're still there. Whether they are or not, I don't know. But it's just a way for me to feel like there's some company when I play a game by myself. And I don't know if that's going to become a thing or not. There's not so many board games on Steam that you can play solo and.
Where are you? What's your channel there, Def? Just shout it out for people so that if they haven't seen it yet, they can get along.
Def_Oz on Twitch and YouTube, but there's not much there still. But I've played a few games of Dune Imperium and Gaia Project and Calico the other day, which was interesting. But I don't know. I want to lean on two things which I feel are underrepresented in the hobby. One is the playfulness that comes out of our hobby, and playfulness, I mean, as in adults, which is still seen as something not to be widely accepted in our society, and the story creation that comes out of this, and this is why I'm saying this has evolved in the hobby for me. Games like Oath and Arcs and John Company and Nemesis have done this. I keep thinking about the stories and I want to lean into that somehow. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I can bring board gamers and writers together or something like that. And the second thing is games that, are played a couple of times and then are kind of left aside. And that's just
like my whole collection.
This is normal in the hobby where you got so many new games and releases coming out all the time. But I've gotten comments from other people now in the groups that I play with that they see a massive difference in their enjoyment when I basically force them to play the same game again and again rather than a new game every week. And I feel that there's something there that I could explore a bit more, but again, there's no plans. I don't know if I'm going to be doing anything tomorrow or next year, but I will be looking at doing something creative, something to occupy my time with. So when I do something, I'll let everyone know.
Well, it sounds like there's still some stuff going on. I'm going to be. I'll be keen to come check out your streams, especially if they're focusing on solo play, because that's my thing. And maybe I'll even jump on and we can do our Undaunted campaigns on there if we get a chance.
That'd be good.
Yeah. Is there a censorship thing on Twitch on your dice rolls?
You'll just have to mute him every now and then.
Yeah. You had a moment like that with Jules, didn't you? You played Undaunted and you messaged me saying something about the dice that wasn't very nice, but I can't remember if the dice were mean at you or Jules.
I actually beat Jules for the first 2 or 3 games in Undaunted, so I think they were looking down on me at that point.
The other way, yeah. There you go.
They're a fickle beast. They flipped pretty soon, and the score was evened up at the end against 6 games, I think. All right. So, that ultimately wraps us up. What we're bringing to the end of the show now, and I'm not going to do oaths, not only because there are so many of us on today, but because, and this is a bit of a teaser for next week, the oaths are no more. We will no longer be doing oaths at the end of the show.
There you go. I killed them.
You killed
them.
Oh, wow.
There'll be.
You can take them with you.
Wait, before you get rid of oaths, how many do you have left over, Mitch? Is that why? Like, do you have like 5 or 6 and you're like, oh, well, I'm just not doing it anymore?
Mike, stop it. I was starting to like you again. Stop it. So there's going to be something new and unexpected in the place of the oath. So if you're interested to find out, stay tuned. That'll be revealed next week. But before we close tonight, I'd just like to say on behalf of everybody here, you can all jump in if you want to, but I'd like to say, Def, thank you so much for everything that you've done for the podcast, mate. It's been phenomenal. It wouldn't have been the same without you. You, as I said before, you're definitely a mate for life, and I'm sure we will continue to talk outside of that, but I'll always respect and appreciate everything you've done for your part in getting us to where we are today. So thanks very much, buddy.
Thanks, Steph.
Thank you, Mitch, and thanks for bringing everybody together. This was lovely. Thank you
thanks
very
for
much.
inviting me back on.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
No worries. All right, then with that, I'll say that's the end of episode 307. We'll be back again next week, same bat time, same bat channel, and enjoy more games. We'll talk to you then. Bye.
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 Jace threw the classic one out there. The Def just mentioned chess.
Chef?
Yeah.
Chef is a good game.
Chef.
Yeah.
Chef is,
I played chess back when I was a kid.
Chef's when you play chess with Def.
Okay, yeah. That's Def chess.